Okay, folks, little revision video on 1918 election, which was a seminal and very important turning point in Irish history. We know that World War One ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day, the 11th month, 1918. And we know that shortly afterwards, 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, a general election was held in Britain. Ireland was part of Britain, so we were part of that general election. And the main parties contesting that election in Ireland were the Irish Parliamentary Party, the Home Rule Party, which up until this time had been by far the most popular party in Ireland. Sinn Féin, which up until a couple of years before this was a very obscure party with almost no support, and the Ulster Unionist Party, which represented the interests of Unionists on the island of Ireland. The party leaders involved John Dillon of the Irish Parliamentary Party, but at that stage John Redmond had died. Eamon de Valera, Sinn Féin, surviving member of the 1916 command structure, very popular as a result. Edward Carson, a Dublin lawyer, committed unionist and leader of the Ulster Unionist Party. Sinn Féin, as I said, were an obscure, very small, minor party with almost no support a couple of years before, but by 1918 they were massively popular with nationalist voters because of their association with 1916 and a lot of sympathy that had been felt for the rebels after 1916 and the executions. De Valera, as a surviving commander of the 1916 Rising, was seen as a kind of a cult hero, somebody who represented Irish nationalism and pride, so people supported him as leader of Sinn Féin. And there was also a sense that we wanted independence. Home rule was the big promise from the Home Rule Party, the Irish Parliamentary Party, that we use our democratic powers to win Home Rule, and we'd done that, the sense was, and we still hadn't got a parliament in Dublin because the Brits couldn't be trusted. So Sinn Féin, they said, look, we don't want to have anything to do with Britain anymore. In their manifesto, which is a document that political parties give out before an election in the hope that they will be elected, in their manifesto, they said, look, we're not going to go to Westminster. We're not going to take up our seats in Westminster. We're just going to set up an Irish Parliament in Dublin. And we're going to use any means available to break British rule in Ireland. Now, that added up to war. If we set up a parliament in Dublin, which the British regarded as illegal, they're going to use force to close that parliament. If the Sinn Féin say, well, we're going to do anything we can to defend that parliament, well, that's going to be war. So a vote for Sinn Féin in 1918 was a vote for war. Sinn Féin planned to go to the peace conference, which was being held in Paris after the First World War, to try to persuade the people meeting there to allow Ireland to become an independent country. Very unlikely, considering Britain was one of the winners in the war and Britain was opposed to Irish independence. The Irish Parliamentary Party was probably one of the big stories of 1918. In 1910, it won 74 seats out of a possible, I think it was 110 in the 1910 election, right? So that was massive. It was a big party. By 1918, it still had 67 seats, which was the biggest party in Ireland. In the 1918 election, the Irish Parliamentary Party won only 6 seats, losing 61. So you can see the nationalist vote, which had been with the Irish Parliamentary Party, completely switched away from it. Where did it switch to? Well, look at Sinn Féin's numbers. 1910 election, when the Irish Parliamentary Party had 74 seats, Sinn Féin had 0. In 1918, before the general election, Sinn Féin had 6 seats. But in the 1918 election, they won 73. So look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. 73 seats from 0, 74 seats down to 6. So Sinn Féin picked up most of those Irish Parliamentary Party seats, which shows that people have got fed up with Home Rule and we're now moving to the demand for an Irish Republic. The Ulster Unionist Party in 1910 had 17 seats. In 1918 it won 22, which means that it gained 5 seats, but you can see 22 seats to 73. It was clear that the majority of the population of Ireland wanted an Irish Republic, but there was a large minority who were going to be against it. Why was the 1918 election important? Well, it signalled the end of the Irish Parliamentary Party. It was wiped out in that election. It signalled the rise of Sinn Féin and republicanism, and it meant that an Irish War of Independence was going to happen. And it showed how the two communities on the island, the Unionist and Nationalist communities, were really, really opposed to each other. And it made what happened a couple of years later with the 1920 Government of Ireland Act, the partition of Ireland into 2 separate states of Northern Ireland and a southern state, much more likely. So there you go. There's a little revision on the important events of the 1918 election and why it mattered.